Today's guest is Richard Erikodi. We're not just talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies and NFTs the way the West does typically. What's interesting about what Richard Erikodi is doing with the Koy Network is this is something that's pivotal to the infrastructure that's necessary in Africa. And when you have a country whose biggest source of infrastructure for payment, transfers, exchanges, and just everyday living is supported by the cell phone companies instead of banks and other institutions that are more commonplace and taken for granted possibly on the West, you really start to look at how blockchain itself can be a game changer in other parts of the world. And in particular, the unique way that Richard Erikodi and his team are beginning to develop this. And if not for nothing, you're going to love this conversation because it's really unique and interesting to see how this technology is being applied. You want to talk about use cases in Web3? This is it right here. So without further ado, Richard Erikodi of Koy Network. Okay, so we have a lot of ground to cover, but I think one of the most important things that we could start with is exactly what you said, because it's the perfect context. E-commerce, what does it look like in Africa right now?
E-commerce in Africa is fairly fragmented. The basis of it is that there's a lack of trust. Trust around payments. There's a lot of cash on delivery type e-commerce, and that's purely because how do I trust that I'll get my money when I send you my stuff, kind of thing, and that then makes it very tricky to really grow as an e-commerce business. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a few e-commerce businesses actually fold in Africa, and we think it's because of how they've rolled out, how they've approached the society in Africa, and we think part of it is that there's a missing layer of infrastructure. There's an irony in it because Africa is a land of mobile money. Africans are very settled into electronic money, but not for e-commerce as such. It's for day-to-day payments. It's replacing cash payments. People are standing next to each other but paying each other in electronic money. So it's not the geographic distance for payments is not as great as it could be, and it's purely around a certain type of infrastructure that's required to be in place, in my view, in order to promote that kind of industry. And we think, or we feel that we can begin to solve that. It's a big job, but we'll try. We'll give it a good go.
Yeah, and I don't think the American mind can comprehend just what that looks like, because what we know it to be is, well, we log on somewhere, we make our payment with our bank card, right, which is a whole other infrastructure that we take for granted, and then we make the payment and then our stuff shows up, and that's just how life is. That's just the way it works. That's how we know e-commerce. We log on somewhere, whether it's one of the bigger names or a smaller brand, or even going to the grocery store or what have you, and we expect that when we pay, our money is there and everything can be trusted, and it's just the way life is. That's not the same, is it?
No, it's not the same, and it's you see with the banking system, that's the system that's developed over a long time. You've had the card system, the payments, all the security built into it has also developed over time. You've got to remember, more than 50% of Africa is still unbanked, and Africans are trusting mobile phone companies who are not financial institutions to actually deliver, financial inclusion. And they've done a good job. We must credit them for that. But they've managed to do it because banks deliberately excluded, the people from the banking system. I've had personal experience where I currently don't live in Kenya. I moved out of Kenya I moved to the UK for studies and then, stayed on. But my personal experience has been I've lost several bank accounts because I haven't interacted with them for a time, and they've been shut down or they've been charged to zero and then just disappeared. And that has been, the banking experience for the Africans is not great. So you've got the banks who are not participating properly within an economic system that has, billions of people, 1.4 billion, I think. And then because the money part of it hasn't been very well developed previously, all the other support industries, the logistics, the suppliers haven't been able to develop their businesses around this trust chain of flow of money. So now with mobile money, that is now coming in. Nairobi as a city has same day delivery. It's had it for a long time. Same day delivery is a big thing now in England, beginning to be a big thing. But in Nairobi, it's been there for maybe a couple of years, maybe 3 years, and it happens. But again, it's promoted by mobile money, and it still relies on the sender. You've got a buyer, a sender, a seller, and a courier. So the courier relies on being paid by the seller, who then relies on getting a signature from the buyer to then pay that last mile delivery. So we're designing systems that will distribute payment based on using smart contracts to pay everyone at point of delivery. So the seller will receive their funds the moment the goods are collected. The money will end up in like an electronic escrow type thing, and so it will be distributed to the seller. Then the logistics person will collect it. Once they deliver, they get their cut, and the transaction ends there. So we're bringing in a blockchain-based system, a trustless system, to promote trust. If you can see that, by having this smart contract, machine-driven program, we program the money, and the money will go where it needs to be based on the program that's gone into it. That's how we're approaching it,
And
to make it work.
yeah, and this is the Koy Network. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah. The Koy Network is a blockchain designed to support payments and other digital goods and services, delivering digital value. Koy Network, the history of it is that it's a product of hard questions and conditions from regulators, specifically in East Africa, where we're building a payments platform. And we previously tested using a public blockchain that the team I previously built were part of a Telos blockchain that we built many years back. But the regulators, though they were happy with what we're doing, they were not happy about the public aspect of the blockchain. There's private information, financial information, and they're quite keen to make sure that that's protected. And so we went back, redesigned our business approach, and managed to design the Koy Network, which delivers all the experience of a blockchain, but doesn't have published information for how the tokens are moving around. So, and when I say tokens in there, we will have two types of tokens. We'll have tokens governed by the ISO 4217, which governs the national currencies, and then the general tokens that you'd get within crypto, for example. So the national currencies, regulated tokens, they've got very specific tickers and all that, and they'll only be issued to licensed organizations. So the Koy Network is designed to meet regulation as required in the areas where these dApps will deploy, but at the same time deliver a full end-to-end blockchain experience for these regulated businesses. Like when we deploy in East Africa, we will have the Kenyan shilling, for example, flowing through the Koy Network by a dApp that's registered and regulated in Kenya to provide mobile money services. And that the full experience of mobile money service, which will be payments B2B, peer-to-peer, transfers, trade finance, and even loyalty schemes, support loyalty schemes using digital goods in terms of transferring value or recognizing entitlement to certain goods.
What I love about this is I have the contrast of being out here, like I'm in Los Angeles, California, right? And it's like there's a lot of conversation about, oh, should we have crypto and blockchain? It's such an option, and so many are trying to vie for it, but it's not catching the speed because the necessity isn't there, because we are just fine with the way things are, right? What I'm fascinated by,
that's right.
This is truly an infrastructure that, seen in that light, is almost essential for what it can do and how it can play such a core flow between all the different departments and all the different currencies. Because there's, as you we were talking about this before we hit record, the diaspora of like how much money is being sent back, and how much of it is still excluding those who send the money back home, and what that looks like. I'd love if you could go more into that and sort of like what your vision is for where this, what this one day could look like.
Yeah, I can go into it. Like you say, blockchain provides a certain type of infrastructure. The way we're looking at it is that it will form the foundations of maybe, in the fullness of time, a super app in Africa, which provide financial services as well as other things. And the way I'm looking at it, I'm approaching it from a commercial point of view. Buying a payments platform from a developer provider costs millions of dollars. And because of that, that alone is a limiting factor for anyone that wants to build into it. And even if you did get it, because a lot of the countries now have an element of mobile money, first mover advantage has now settled in. And because of that, it's very difficult to break into the market in the way that would make it viable, especially if you've spent millions of dollars to buy this equipment. So we've looked at it and decided to go down blockchain and offer a sort of blockchain as a service. Then overlaid on that remittance or payments as a service, just to lower the bar for anyone that wants to enter into payments. Now they don't have to pay millions of dollars if they want to do it. They could come talk to us and they'll pay, a minuscule amount compared to what others would ask for. But for me, the beauty of blockchain extends beyond that. When we bring in the diaspora and things like that, the blockchain is available through the internet, so it's available globally. If I give a quick example, currently the mobile money solutions are based on SIM cards for the cell phone provided by the telcos. So they're locked into the countries based on your phone number. If you travel abroad, you quickly realize unless you got a roaming package, your smartphone, your phone, your telephone becomes more or less useless. And it's the same with mobile money. Once you've left the country, that's it. You can use some limited services, but for a telco to then grow into a different country, they have to go into that new country and set up infrastructure. And we've got live examples of that. Safaricom in Kenya has recently moved into Ethiopia, and they've had to rebuild the infrastructure over there. But now with blockchain that we're using deployed on the internet, moving into new markets because of its ubiquity, you set up a new currency and maybe geofence it to the countries, but it's available. And then when you expand that vision to look at the diaspora, African diaspora, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but I can say 2 million Africans are in the Gulf currently. Millions more are in the US, Europe, and all other places. But I single out the ones in the Gulf because a lot of those are new emigres. The way they manage their money is that they actually remit back upwards of 90% of their income, purely because of how the employment works in the Gulf. Employers provide all other, they provide accommodation, transport, things like that. So the emigres there don't, they can afford to send more of their income back home, right? Then you've got the Africans in Europe, in America, maybe they send slightly less, but collectively they send a lot more in comparison to the ones in the Gulf. But in order to do that, you've got third-party company in the US collecting money, and then they've contracted a local delivery company in Kenya to then deliver the money, and they've got this arrangement there. The whole arrangement costs the sender 10% of the transaction. So when you're talking $51 billion going into Africa a year, you begin to see how much it is just disappearing in the supply chain. So we're thinking, by having this blockchain, it's ubiquitous, it's available across the world, we can have an end-to-end experience where it's one distributed ledger And even if it's various companies involved, the cost of transacting within the blockchain will be quite low. So there'll be savings delivered there. An aggressive company could go as low as 1.5% in terms of cost, and all that money will then be released. So because I don't see the Africans sending $5 billion less because they're paying lower fees. They will still send 51 billion, but this time, a good 5 extra billion will arrive into the continent, which could then be used for more stuff. And it's important to note that the diaspora money now exceeds the foreign direct investment and loans that come into Africa. So it's an important forex source for Africa. And that's why we're looking at blockchain as a way of joining up these places cheaply. It's expensive to build initially, but the long-term running of it is quite stable. It's front-loaded on cost, and then it just drops away. And from launch, the barriers to entry are completely lowered. We can afford to even get into partnerships of revenue share, for example, with dApps, where we support them to get on the markets and then try and recover that way. And that's because we've invested initially into this very efficient platform that then delivers a better experience but a very low cost, and therefore releasing working capital and extra money for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, what it's going to do in terms of bringing money back into even the average consumer's pocket to spend and to just stimulate the economy is one conversation alone, right?
Exactly.
A lot of things float in my head as we hear this, because it's such an ambitious project. Number one, what's the support looking like in terms of the infrastructure that currently exists, and how are they viewing what you're trying to accomplish? Are you running into any challenges there?
Well, as an innovator, perceived disruptive markets, obviously we've run into all sorts of headwinds. The most significant headwinds have been regulatory headwinds.
Yeah.
The regulatory blockchain is still, fairly new science, if I could call it that. And the association with crypto makes it very tricky, especially for regulators around fintech, because oftentimes the regulator for mobile money is the regulator for crypto in these places. So it's taken us 3 years in Kenya alone to speak to the regulator and get them on side in terms of understanding blockchain and our approach and how that will be beneficial. So that's been a learning curve for us and for them. But we're making movements. We've received partial authorization in certain jurisdictions, which we're happy with, and very soon we should receive full authorization to then push forward. But we have several conversations with several regulators. Other headwinds we've run into, obviously, incumbents. Nobody wants their business disrupted. If you're making that much money, you don't want
10%, yeah.
It's human nature. You want to continue creaming it, but the reception, we believe, our observations are in the markets we're looking at. The users are looking for an alternative. They're looking for a better experience. And we're not just coming in to try and snatch market share. We're actually looking to create new economic activities. Because if you look at the Koy Network, some of the partners we're speaking to, and maybe I can mention one or two, I have to be careful. But we've got like a green economy business that's looking to deploy on our platform. And some of the things, and one day I'm sure you'll get to interview them and they will tell you more. But one of the things I've seen they're doing is they're trying to promote rewards for green activities. If you're into recycling, if you're into they've got something to do with corals. I can't get into the detail because that's their business. But it will be rewarding to do green stuff. Things that we're used to, to pick up some rubbish and take it to a tip. Pick up plastic and other things off the beach and hand it over, and you get this green token. And our interaction with it is that when that green token hits our mobile money system, you can convert it to cash, to fiat, which you can then use in the shops. Or better still, using smart contracts and swaps, the Web3 tech that we know so well, the user can use this green token to pay, but the transition, the actual shilling is delivered into the merchant's wallet. So they never even get to see the green token. So the negotiation for them to receive a token and then have a settlement period is replaced by a smart contract, which is something that we're actively working on.
Which is the whole point. The whole point of it is to have trust not be in question whatsoever.
Exactly. And you know, you're looking at things like so in terms of the headwinds, you know, you've got that, but then you know, we're looking at new activities. That's one, and there are a few others. You know, there's quite a few others that we're looking to introduce. But then when you go back to the question of trust, you know, I've got to give a bit of history of how I got into blockchains. You know, my background, accountant by trade of many years, and one of my first jobs straight after university was doing bank reconciliations for a major retailer. And, you know, many times it left me questioning my life choices in terms of it was one of the worst jobs. You know, if you're employing a new accountant, please don't give him that job, because we may lose a good accountant from the industry because of it. And so I went through that process. And then, you know, an accountant's job, especially, I should be specific, a management accountant, the ones that work in business, their entire job is mainly reconciliation. You know, they're reconciling the bank, they're reconciling the costs, they're reconciling payments, or reconciling income, you know, revenue. So that's the life of an accountant. So then, you know, after many years of doing this job, you know, I'm so used to reconciling things all the time, I come across blockchain, a ledger that is reconciled in real time. It's always reconciled in that. That was a eureka moment. I was thinking, wow, you know, I could do this. Maybe I should have thought, oh, this could take my job. But I didn't, because I was thinking, this would make my life so much easier. And that's when I started looking into blockchain. And blockchain is changing the flow of money even within business, because you either have it or you don't. The reconciliations, the cash in transit, all those things go away. The retailer I used to work for used to have a line in the P&L, cash in transit, which was billions of, or millions of pounds, I should say. And it was so bad that they set up a bank just to manage that part of it and more other things. So with blockchain, everything moves in real time, especially, you know, the Koy Network, what we're using, the Antelope protocol. It's an instant transaction. You know, it won't take minutes like, you know, the Bitcoins or Ethereum or others. It's instant. The moment you click send, it's arrived on the other side. So it takes away the element of reconciliation. We're building business processes around that. One of them is how we're going to be settling commissions for some of our agents. You know, they will be able to settle commissions in real time as they perform the job, which as a business, that's working capital released. Otherwise, you know, others, when they get into this kind of job, they carry out a reconciliation 4 to 6 weeks after the event. So, you know, as an agent, you've done a job and you don't get your money for 4 to 6 weeks, which is a long time, especially if you're a busy agency. You know, that's money tied up. But, you know, we've got business processes built around that where, because our ledgers are real time, we can manage that settlement in real time, and no one will lose any of their money.
No, it's clear that this needs to happen in some capacity because of how much, as you've mentioned many a time here, working capital is being tied up. What that's doing to the overall capacity of growth, right? Because capital delivers growth.
Exactly.
And when it's tied up, you're literally bottlenecking what's possible in an economy, right? So for me, I can immediately see that. So I asked about the incumbents and how they may feel about what you're doing, and that's clear, and I was almost assumed. What kind of infrastructure, because I imagine this exists on a cloud, right? This exists in some capacity, leveraging that. Is that becoming a challenge to scale up? What kind of partners do you need to help make this a reality is what I'm getting at?
Um, well, we need data centers. We need. Africa is still building these things out as well. The likes of Google, Amazon are only just arriving on the horizon in Africa. So what we're doing, we're actually our CTO has designed the hardware. Because of the performance requirements that we've got within our specifications, no cloud provider can currently give us that performance without what they call noisy neighbors. But we've got our own bespoke machines, and what we're doing, we're going to base them in the different countries as we roll out. So we'll have the nodes, and then those will be networked together over the internet, and we'll have some backup systems in other places just to make sure that we've got high availability. Um, the key thing we need is good data centers that have good power supply and strong internet connection. I have to say Starlink has now arrived into Kenya, which is a good thing. Africa is well served with undersea cables that connect up all the big cities, from Mombasa on the East African coast right down. There's a cable that runs down to South Africa and then up the western coast to Nigeria and other places. So provided we're near these undersea cables, we'll be fine. So they're dictating where we're locating our machinery. But yeah, we've had to build our equipment for now because the data center provision is quite bespoke. In one of the countries, the best data center is actually owned by the telco. I'm not sure how receptive they will be. So we've had to take a view on that.
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would seem like
Yeah.
that's the thing with innovators, right? There's a few companies I've worked with fairly recently where I've seen that a lot of the incumbents, when new technologies are coming in, it makes it more difficult for them to charge the prices that they charge to keep the market share that they keep. So how do we incentivize is truly the $1 billion question, right? Is or
Yes.
the £1 billion question, right? Which is like,
It is indeed. Yeah.
how do we get them to see that the long term gains are far more worth it than whatever short-term monetary fines they have right now? And if they care about the people, this may be a question more of ethics than it would be of monetary gains, right? At this point,
Indeed. Indeed.
it's like, what do you want to leave for the future, for your children and your children's children, right? That's which is trying to speak to business people about the moral high ground is not always the best strategy,
No, no, it's not. But it's an interesting question. Asking them what they want to leave their children. And, some of them will tell you a large, a large wad of cash more than anything. Maybe that's what they're aspiring to. But interestingly, Africa is quite cohesive in certain ways. The unit of society is very communal. I grew up in the northwest of Kenya, in the highlands, and there's always coming together for something. You come together to raise money for, to buy something for the village, or to pay for someone to go and study abroad and other things. So these things happen, and there's even a whole philosophy built around it called Ubuntu, which works. We learned about it when we were in school. So the African person is more communal and well driven to work together. But obviously, we're working with very commercial businesses that may not share the same vision. But one of our drivers is to try and get back to those roots. Still using Web3. Some of the tools within Web3, the DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations. When I think about some of those community businesses or social enterprises that I saw growing up, these were DAOs. They just didn't have blockchain tools to manage. They manage using analog notebooks and things like that. So, we'll be looking to develop some tools that will include wallets and things like that, where groups of people can come together, save together, invest in things together, maybe even tokenize these assets for them so that they can, demonstrate ownership for these and leverage those assets for other stuff. But just give them, bring them into the new tech, but also make it easier for them to enter and exit some of these societies. In Swahili, they're called chama. and any Swahili speaker would understand that. And it makes sense. Most people are members of these, and that's how they save. And this has also plugged the gap that's been left by the banks. Because in Kenya, they're called savings groups, SACCOs, SACCOS. They've got so much money because the users have saved money, then they borrow from these savings clubs to then carry out their day-to-day activities. So some of those we're looking to support using, turnkey wallets, savings club wallets, and things like that to then promote that side of things. And so we'll be striving to be more humane and a bit less commercial than the existing organizations. But we'll see how it turns out.
For me, when I hear you share all that you're sharing in this conversation, I truly see this as the perfect testing ground for the use case of this technology and its implications in terms of what it can do to an economy. And part of me is almost sad that we have the built-in infrastructure already out here in the US because there's really no incentive. People, it's a plaything mostly to most people out here. There are some people who take it very seriously and are developing serious technologies, but no one seems to really wrap their heads around it. Some people have heard about tokens. Some people have heard about cryptocurrencies. Many have heard about blockchain. Some of them kind of understand it. They go, isn't that the thing we use for imports and exports now? Isn't it making it easier? Sort of floating in the air. A lot of people bought NFTs, right? And oh, look, I have a unique 3D graphic to my profile image. And that's about the majority of it, right? And then many people had a lot of crypto and they lost a lot of money or made a lot of money. But all of that, in contrast to very real implications in the day-to-day lives of people and what Koy Network is trying to do, for me, is such an incredible mission and such an ambition that's why, for me, I'm like, what do you need? Data centers. I was like, okay, what else? Because if there's anything this show can do or this episode alone can do, is capture that. So you don't have to go around doing the education over and over again, right? Here it is.
Fantastic.
It's in real time. So as we begin to close things out, I want to roll out the red carpet for you, Richard. And I want to ask you, what's the call to action for the listener? Where do you want them to go? What do you want them to know?
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate that very much, and for the searching questions you've asked. You see, when it comes to solving problems, my experience, and I'm glad I got into blockchains and got into projects, like EOS and Telos. And these projects, what they did for me as a person, my personal growth around them was, I was working with people from across the world. And I've got the benefit of having left Kenya as a teenager, moved to the UK as a student, and then worked in the UK. So I still have my heritage, and I can connect things that I witnessed growing up, things that I still see because I'm in Kenya quite often, and comparing that to my current life in a developed country, and then dealing with people from other developed countries, and again others from less developed countries, and how we then come together to work together on these blockchains. I've come to understand that we all solve problems within our context, right? So if you're in a society where the financial system is well developed, the public services are working, you probably be developing games. You're trying to solve boredom. That's a problem. It's a real problem that needs solving. So you might do that. An NFT will be fun because of what it is. If you're coming from a society which is something I witness all the time, and it keeps me grounded, because although I live in a very developed country, I've got friends, I've got relatives that live, some of them in abject poverty. They've got no prospect. They haven't seen what I've seen, so they don't know that they're in that place. So the problems that they'll be solving will be very basic. How do I move money from here to 100 miles away? How do I make sure that my invoice gets there without being tampered with? Those questions. And so we're trying to use this really modern tech. We're trying to apply it in a setting where solving problems like that. NFTs, you're using it for profiles. We're going to use NFTs in trade finance, our invoices, our tickets, all the stuff we're issuing on the Koy Network. The NFTs will be that kind of thing. The ticketing will be NFTs. The trade invoices, trade finance will be running using NFTs or some description of the other, or the NFT tech. Yeah, some of them might be pretty, depending on the business and how they want to do it, but that's how we'll be utilizing NFTs. So that's how I see it, and I appreciate the differences in context and people doing what they can within their context. So for me, I'm privileged because I can see the developed world and what they're doing, and I know what's going on in the developing world and what they need, and through my experience, I can bring certain things to them, and maybe in the fullness of time, you come to Africa and find us playing around with NFTs because we'd have sorted out all the other problems. So in terms of what we need currently, for me, one of the biggest challenges I forgot to mention was even getting the right business partners was a challenge, because I could see them. They've got the skills that I know would make, will bring big differences on the project. And it took a while convincing some of them to join the project, and I'm glad they did. And we're now leveraging that expertise to solve these problems, and they can actually also see where we're going. And they're more and more committed. Some of them are more committed than I am, which is quite a victory. So some of the things we're looking for are more expertise, because blockchain is quite new. We need strong developers. We need people that can sell the message. Currently, as a commercial person, anyone that's been thinking about setting up a payments platform in Africa, for example, give us a ring. We'll help you roll out. We'll make sure you don't pay millions of dollars to roll out. We'll provide you the platform that will offer you the commercial proposition to be able to operate without pricing itself out. Beyond that, we also need to expand our network within the regulatory infrastructure, lobbyists and people like that, just so that they can see that we're friendly. We're trying to do this for all the right reasons, and to make it, so that at the end of it, there's an overall benefit for everyone, and we'll all rise up. I think beyond that, we'll continue bootstrapping, which is what we're doing. If anyone wants to join us in the effort, they can come and help us, help the bootstrappers.
I was going to ask. Yeah, no, this is incredible. You're bootstrapping this. Well, you would have to, because many of the incumbents would be the ones with the capital. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the incumbents has like a $50 million marketing budget, which is well beyond even our annual budget. But we'll get into the market. We'll work with them and see where things go. It's the quality of service and efficiency. That's where the rubber meets the road, I think, in my opinion.
No, and that's why I love that we were able to record this conversation, because often you have a conversation between two people in blockchain, right? And then the conversation can get pretty verbose, pretty in there in the vocabulary, like people start getting lost, right? I don't happen to be someone that knows very much about it. I know enough to have a conversation where I can ask questions that I think are pertinent for anyone who would, but I have also never seen the light of day of like a day's work in a developing country. I've been fortunate enough to be born in the US, right? And I know that creates a big difference. So the questions I asked are going to be directly related, but I feel they're close enough that it creates the context where understanding can take place. Because if there's one thing I do know about blockchain and crypto and all these, is that education seems to be the biggest learning curve, the biggest challenge, the biggest obstacle. And the amount of times you have to repeat and share what it is you're trying to do, it's just that's truly a work in itself. And this, I think, is the perfect form of or format for marketing and PR for what you're doing. Because I always say, there's a lot of ways to look at PR, right? But the way I always say it is, if you can make the mayor in a certain city laugh, you did your job, right? That's the way that's the way I see it, man. And so if this conversation can be taken apart into pieces and shared with the right people at the right time, and more of these conversations in this kind of design with this kind of understanding and the intent behind it, I know that this mission is a matter of when, not if, and I can't wait to see what.
That's right.
So I can't thank you enough for stopping by. I think is there a website that the listeners should go to learn more?
Yeah, Koy Network, Koy. By the way, Koy is a fabric from East Africa. We're looking to weave this financial fabric right through Africa, and that's where that comes from. So Koy.network is our website. It's also going through transition as we become more and more corporate. So, there'll be changes over the next 2-3 weeks. So keep visiting the website, and there'll be more information on there. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Koy Network is on Twitter and all the other major socials. We've got a good, strong marketing team. The tech team are also very, very good. It's because of them that we can confidently talk about all the stuff we've got. All credit to them. So we'll keep building, and we're looking forward to speaking to anyone that's interested in our project. And when we launch, you're welcome to come visit us in wherever we'll be. We'll be in East Africa probably, or West Africa, and we'll let you know. And
I'm looking
come down
forward
to
to it.
Africa.
I finally
Yeah.
got my passport. It's sad to say, but it took me
Oh,
35 years as an American to get my passport.
Wow. Wow.
I'm
Make use
embarrassed
of
to
it.
say it.
No, it's fine. If you've got everything around you, there's no need to. But it's always good to travel and see
Yeah.
things. And you're welcome to come and see us in Nairobi whenever you're free. Yeah.
Wow, Richard, I can't thank you enough for sharing your knowledge, sharing your vision, and just being all around a stand-up guy, man. Thank you for stopping by.